Imagine the smell first. Not just stable muck, but a concentrated, fermented soup of human waste, boiling water, and stable runoff. They didn't just kill you in 1631. They made you a vessel for the most revolting substance known to man. They called it the Schwedentrunk, the Swedish Drink, but it was a death sentence delivered through a funnel. The year is 1631. Germany is a slaughterhouse. We are 15 years into a war that will eventually erase 1/3 of the entire population. 8 million people dead. Entire provinces wiped off the map. But the real monsters weren't always the generals in their plumed hats. They were the mercenaries. These guys weren't paid in coin. They were paid in contribution. That's the polite 17th century word for steal anything that isn't bolted down. When the army rolls into your village for the 5th time in the year, you learn to hide. You've buried the grains under the floorboards. You've sewn your silver into the mattress. You've even walled up your daughters in the cellar to keep them safe. The soldiers know this, and they have a special way of making you talk. Here's the scene. They grab a farmer, pin him to his own kitchen table. They don't start with knives. That's too quick. Instead, they wedge a block of wood, the Sperrholz, between his teeth. They jam it until the jaw hinges creak. Then they slide a funnel down his throat. Now comes the drink. They don't use water. They go to the cesspool, grab buckets of liquid manure, urine, and the stagnant grey runoff from dung heap. Sometimes for a bit of extra flavour, they boil it all first. They pour bucket after bucket, more than any human body was meant to hold. Your stomach isn't designed for this. It's an organ, not a barrel. And as the filth fills you, your belly begins to distend. It stretches tight like a drum. It pushes up against your lungs, making it hard to breathe, making every breath a desperate, wet gasp. Your intestines are screaming under the internal pressure, but they aren't done. Once you're bloated and fit to burst, they bring out the heavy boards. They lay them across your heavy midsection, and then they jump on them, or they use a spear butt and rhythmically pump your stomach like bellows. The goal wasn't to make you sick. It was to turn your own internal organs into a torture chamber. I'm not making this up for views. We know this happened because of a man named Hans Jacob Christoffel von Grimmelshausen. He was 10 years old when he saw his world burn. He survived the war and wrote The Adventurous Simplicissimus, a book that reads like a fever dream. In chapter 4, he describes exactly what he saw. Soldiers laughing as they forced disgusting liquid manure into a man's belly until he split. This was the interrogation of the 1600s. It worked because the pain was inescapable. You couldn't pass out. You couldn't fight back. You were literally drowning in filth while you were lay on dry land. Most victims would point to their hidden gold within a few minutes just to make the pouring stop. But for many, the stop came too late. Let's say you talk. You tell them where the grain is. They let you up. You think it's over, but it's not. That pressurised filth didn't just stay in your stomach. Under the weight of those boards, that bacterial soup was forced back up into your throat and, crucially, down into your lungs. And in an era before antibiotics, before they even knew what a germ was, you've just inhaled a dose of every pathogen in the village. Within days, your chest began to rattle. You develop a fever that cooks your brain. You aren't just dying from an infection. You're literally rotting from the inside out. You survived the drink, only to spend the next 3 weeks coughing up the exact same filth they'd poured down you. It was a death sentence with a very, very long fuse. You might say, But why call it the Swedish Drink? Because the cruelty was the point. It was a mockery of hospitality, a way to strip away a person's dignity before you took their life. And by the time the war ended in 1648, the Schwedentrunk had become a symbol of the broken Europe. It represented a world where a drink could kill you and your neighbours were the ones holding the funnel. It's a reminder that the worst things in history weren't done by monsters. They were done by greedy, hungry men with a bucket and a funnel. The 30 Years' War was full of these fates worse than death. The Schwedentrunk is just the beginning of how creative people got when they were hungry and bored. I covered a punishment where the dying took 17 days and it involved bolts. That video is right here. Like and subscribe for more hairy history here at Bearded Banter.